This is video number 2. I'm using a Ricola to help my throat. Ricola. All right, so where do all the calories go? Right, we know where the calories are coming from. Where are they going? So BMR, that's your basal metabolism. It's a minimum amount of energy needed to keep the body alive. It actually cannot be measured. You can never actually find a human being and put them in some sort of weird suspended state where they're not moving at all, but they're not asleep. Because when you go to sleep, your body has different metabolic profiles. Everybody's kind of different, by the way. So it's a theoretic minimal energy required to stay alive, like somebody taking LSD, floating in 0G in the space station. Actually, that might be the way to do it. The biggest contributor to your metabolism is your lean body mass, mostly muscle. The organ weights between two people on Earth are pretty similar, so we really differ in terms of muscle. Fat does burn calories because fat is not butter. It's their cells full of fat. But muscle cells burn so many more calories. That's the biggest contributor. That's why at a red light, a 8-cylinder Mustang burns more gasoline than a 4-cylinder Prius, right? At a red light. Exercise, right? The race cars burn more gasoline than cars that are idle. I think we agree on this. Like I said, you actually it's called thermogenesis for a reason. You actually get warm breaking down, shipping, and digesting your food. That's the reason why they give you ice water at a restaurant and not warm water. And the one on the bottom is called, that's my cat in the back. The one on the bottom is called adaptive thermogenesis. All these three are kind of like the main pie wedges, if you will. If I can sneak back. You're okay, Rosa. Yes, you're okay. Those are the main pie wedges. That pie, though, can increase in volume or shrink in volume based on the outside temperature, right? We burn more calories to stay warm when it's cold, and we burn more calories to stay cool when it's hot. And so, when you're sweating and you're panting in the heat, you're burning more calories. When you are literally shivering in really cold conditions, that's called the shivering response. You're burning more calories just to shiver yourself warm. So what are the big? Basal metabolism is the biggest burner. It's not the one that we worry about. The one we worry about, of course, is physical activity because we're all lazy. We're not good people, right? That's what we have been told. It's this non-scientific urban legend about weight and what regulates weight. Absolutely, exercise is important. But again, it's not the biggest pie wedge. So, what drives your BMR, your basal metabolic rate? Like I said, lean body mass. Age. Older people burn less. You lose 5% of your metabolism every decade after 30. Folks, if you're under 30, I'm burning 10% less than you, sitting on the couch, watching the Patriots get their butt kicked by everybody in football. Gender. Males generally are more muscular than females. There's other differences there as well, but males burn more calories than females. Body size. So heavier people just have more stuff. They have to maintain their body. They burn more. Taller people burn more calories because they have more skin surface area. You have to keep the skin warm. You have to keep the skin cool. Genetics. Weight runs in families. I think we all know this, right? And of course it does. Athletic skill, smarts. Some of these things are not how you're raised. It's just genetics. And then these are all kind of tricky. Most of these raise your metabolic rate. So being emotionally stressed or injured raises your metabolic rate because your turnover, remember turnover, that goes up. Illness, your turnover goes up. Your thyroid, forget about goiter. This has nothing to do with iodine. The amount of thyroid hormone you produce, less or more, will regulate your metabolism. If you are starving or malnourished, the body shuts down. That lowers your metabolism. That's why we know going on really low calorie diets, you will lose weight in the beginning because you're not eating. But eventually you're going to lower your metabolism and you won't be burning. You won't be eating, but you won't be burning a lot either because you kind of shut the body down. I just talked about environmental temp. And yeah, drugs. Caffeine and nicotine, heroin, cocaine, they all jack up your metabolism. Does pot, which is not an elevating drug, but more of a depressing drug in terms of calming you, does that regulate your metabolism? Because a lot of us use marijuana, either edibles or we smoke it. I don't know. I'd have to do the research. It's the type of thing where now that pot is legalized, we have to do the science, and it hasn't been done. But without question, caffeine and nicotine raise your metabolic rate. People quit smoking. Hey, people absolutely gain weight. This is interesting, by the way. People have been, well, you could, yeah. It just shows you how the changes in our our energy that we burn at rest hasn't changed a lot, but our total energy expenditure has gone down. Typically as we get older, and so look, this person's older, but their internal organs aren't different much from someone who's a lot younger. This is for males and females, but clearly, even if you're an active 75-year-old, you're not as active as a 25-year-old. There are active 75-year-olds, but they're not that active. Okay. How are we doing on time? All right, perfect. So if BMR is really important, clearly people want to learn a lot about it because that could predict who's overweight and who's underweight. And so we do try to do this. You can't measure BMR, it's theoretical. You can try to estimate it. And the way we estimate it is this. We say, if you're at rest, you're aerobic. All these chapters bleed into each other. Oh, I use the word bleed again. All these chapters feed into each other. Aerobic human beings burn carbohydrate and fat with oxygen. Well, cars burn gas with oxygen. If you knew the size of the engine of the car and you knew how much oxygen the car was using, you could estimate the gas being burnt. Could you not? Sure you could. So if we have a human being at rest, not sleeping, and we go to estimate, we know their height, their weight, their gender, their age, we describe them, and then we measure their oxygen intake. That's called resting metabolic rate. What you burn at rest, not on LSD, in a vegetative state, floating in the space station, okay? This is as good as it gets. So we generally say RMR is this little arrow, these little squiggly things in science mean they're equal. They might as well be equal. But you need to have a resting adult. You need to know their height, weight, age, gender, and be able to measure their oxygen. This is the old school way. This is the old school way to do it. And I'll show you a little bit more of this in a second. If you go to the hospital, they don't have this metabolic cart thing with oxygen ready to go. So they're just going to mathematically estimate. And this is exactly what MyFitnessPal does. When you log into MyFitnessPal the first time and you set up your account, it's mathematically estimating your basal metabolic rate, and then it's making assumptions about how active you might be, and then coming up with a number. What goes into that? You know what goes into that: gender, age, height, and weight. The one famous equation is the Harris-Benedict. There are other equations. There's one that has a French name. It's the scientists were French Canadian. I can't think of it at the top of my head, but Harris-Benedict is the equation that we use. So, and there's a link for it in Canvas.